I'm Kayla, the BookTube Turtle, and today I am finally getting around to discussing Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. It came out in March. I was not doing so well mental health wise, and I just didn't read it or anything. But I did finally get around to reading it, and I loved it, and today we're going to talk about it. I also posted a video that my friend Brittany and I filmed back in November during YALLFest, where we talked about the chapter sample that we got from YALLFest and like our theories and everything. So go check that out if you're interested. And like seeing my thoughts before and after I read this book. Also, this is the first time I've tabbed a book. Look at how awesome this is. I'm so excited. Like, look at that. Look at that. You can see where I didn't tab for the first 100 pages except for this thing right here that I went back and added later. But I've always wanted to like annotate a book, but I just can't bring myself to write in a book. So I compromised with these lovely tabs. The first part of this is going to be spoiler free, in case you haven't read it yet. However, at any time in this video, there may be spoilers for the following series: The Mortal Instruments, The Infernal Devices, The Dark Artifices. Honestly, this entire book is like basically a spoiler for The Infernal Devices because it comes slightly after, and yes. So this takes place, like I said, after The Infernal Devices, and it follows Will and Tessa's kids, James and Lucy. Though like the main characters, technically Cordelia Carstairs, who's on the cover. So a quick description. Leading up to the start of this book, the Shadowhunter world is basically experiencing a lack of demons. So like the group of kids in this book grew up very differently from all of the other characters we followed in previous series. They've never known war or like constant battle. However, all of a sudden like demons are popping up everywhere, and they're like super demons. So they're like extra hard to kill, and they're like going out in the sunlight. I also love with this book that we get a lot of characterization with all of the characters, and there are a lot in this group of kids. But we get to see some of all of them, and that's really nice. And they're also all dealing with their own issues, which we will get to. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I can't wait for the next one. 5 stars. So now you should leave if you don't want to be spoiled, because we are entering the spoilery discussion. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. This is probably gonna jump around a bit. I'm going to attempt to keep things somewhat controlled. But I mean, I have some typed up notes here of things to remember to talk about, and let me tell you, it's a lot. Brace yourselves. So we start off with a little 10-year-old Lucy like wandering through the forest, and she meets like this strange boy who, I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, he's a fairy, like obviously, which I mean is what we're sort of led to believe. I definitely did not think that it was Jessie Blackthorne. Plot twist. But we will get to the Jessie and Lucy situation later. But the actual first chapter introduces us to James and his little group of friends that are called the Merry Thieves. We also get a bit about James's like Shadow Realm issues. I already talked about my thoughts on this in the chapter sample video, so I'm not gonna reiterate here because we got a lot to get through. This book is so long. So let's talk about the dance slash like ballroom party thing. So they have this like gathering at the Institute, and we definitely have Cordelia by this point. We've met her mom. We've probably also met Alistair. I love him. But anyway, Cordelia's mom throughout this entire book is like, you need to find somebody that you can marry. this dance is very important. You gotta make some positive connections, like go socialize. And like all of this is happening because of Cordelia's dad's situation, like with him being like arrested and everything, and the Clave like investigating him. And everyone is here, which, like, let's be real, so confusing. I was so confused in the beginning of this book because there's so many characters and I couldn't keep it straight, like who's connected to who. And because I mean, you've got all of the main kids, but they're also there with all of their family members, like all of their siblings and their parents. And like, example, I still don't know which kids go with Gabriel and which ones go with Gideon. I don't know. So at some point during this, Cordelia and James are dancing together, and all of a sudden Grace Blackthorn, or I mean, I guess she's technically Blackthorn because she was like adopted by the Blackthorns. I can't remember. Cartwright? Is that her name? Grace Cartwright? I'm gonna call her Grace Blackthorn because it makes sense in my head. Whatever. Grace walks in and James just like drops everything, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And like, I get it. He was under some weird bracelet spell. We will talk about that later. But like, I was just there for James and Cordelia from the beginning, apparently. So let's talk about these super demons. So we find out from Jesse that Benedict Lightwood, who I believe is the guy who turned into that worm thing in the Infernal Devices, he like planned to like create an obedient demon that would like give birth to new demons or something. I don't know. You know, another thing with these demons, or the kids are like, we gotta catch one. We gotta catch a demon, one of these like super demons, so we can like figure out what's going on. And they get hold of like, I don't know how you say this, but like a Pyxis box, and I'm just like, that sounds familiar. Isn't that the thing that held the demon that killed Will's sister and cursed him? I'm just like, maybe we shouldn't open that box, you guys. Maybe that's not a good idea. But what do? They open the box. And whatever, they had to like open the box to get out the demon that was previously in there so they could trap the demon. I don't know. But the demon that pops out is like trying to bargain with them before James just like kills it. And then Magnus Bane shows up, who like, I mean, at this point we were like almost 400 pages in, and I had been waiting this whole time for Magnus. I was like, well, where's Magnus? Where is he? Though I'm just saying it would have been hilarious if Magnus's introduction had been like opening the door to the whispering room, because like Magnus is always walking in on people, you know. But it's funny because they are like in the middle of this like demon thing, and Magnus walks in and he goes, what is going on here? And then you've got Matthew, who's just like, Magnus Bane? And he's just like excited. He can't contain himself. But we do eventually discover that this special demon is called Manticore. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But just saying, it sounds a lot like the Mind Flayer thing from Stranger Things. Like where it's got like this parent demon, but it can split itself into separate demons that are separate but also still connected to the parent demon. And like, if you kill the original, you kill all the pieces. I don't know. All I could think about was like the Mind Flayer and like Demodogs. And because of these super demons, at some point is it the Enclave has a meeting that like Lucy and Thomas spy on, and they're just like, we're putting London in quarantine so nobody else gets hurt. Which I'm just like, what? Well, because then also people are like, how are we supposed to get back up from the Clave if they're not allowed to come in here? Which is very valid. Okay, let's talk about the demon sickness that results because of these super demons. So, pretty early on, when all the kids are gathered at the picnic thing, and there's that major demon attack, and like some of them get wounded, and it's like this weird illness, and you can't even really be in contact with the people who are ill, and they're like in this like weird coma thing, because if they scratch you or anything, like their infection like transfers to you, and it's a whole thing. But because of this, the Silent Brothers come to the Institute, which means Jem comes to the Institute, and I love Jem. But going back to the picnic thing, let's talk about Grace. Let's just get into everything about Grace. So I'm just gonna say, Grace was sketchy from the moment I saw her. I was just like, I don't know who this girl is, but she's giving me some sketchy vibes, and I'm not here for it. But I was just like, oh, she's sketchy at the picnic. Her and James like kind of walk off, and she's like grilling him about Cordelia, you know, and they've been like friends forever, and she's just being like really weird. And it's when they're separated from the rest of the group that the demon attack happens, and I was like, that seems suspicious. I also like, I don't know. We have this situation with like Grace and Tatiana throughout the entire book. And like I kept going back and forth for a while on if like Tatiana was somehow controlling Grace, or if Grace was acting of her own accord. Because like a lot of the time Grace keeps acting like she needs to run away from Tatiana. But like Grace is also doing some pretty sketchy stuff, so like I don't know. And like she's involved in a lot of the sketchy stuff that's happening, and so I don't know. I don't know. I don't like her. I don't know. It's a mess. Oh, speaking of running away from Tatiana, when James and Grace meet up the night that like the greenhouse demons escape and like come after her, Grace is just like, we should run away together and like get stripped of our marks and not be Shadowhunters anymore and just leave it all behind. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you can't just ask him to give up literally everything. Like, he's really close with his family and his friends. Like, he would never be able to see or talk to them ever again. Like, you can't just ask him of that, especially when your only reason is like, you don't even have one. We just gotta go. Like, no. Okay. On the subject of Grace, well, let's talk about the bracelet. So I was suspicious of this bracelet from the very beginning. She makes James wear it, and she's like always like checking it to make sure that he's still wearing it. I'm like, that's pretty suspicious. And then she takes it off. It might actually be when he says he won't run away with her. I can't remember, but she takes it off, and like it's like a little bit after that all of a sudden he like feels alive again. Like he's been in some trance the whole time. And he literally says that like everything is so clear now, and he's like, I felt like I was in a haze, but I don't anymore. And I'm just like, it's the bracelet. It's the bracelet. And then at some point, Grace like freaking kisses Matthew, or like makes him kiss her, but she like, when they're like talking, she like grabs his arm, or she like touches his arm, or like does something with his wrist. And like that's when like he has like this weird feeling come over him, and he like kisses her, and I'm just like, did she do something to him? Because I think she did something to him. And then like also eventually James does put the bracelet back on, or she puts the bracelet back on him, and like it's like he feels weird again, like he's like in a haze. I'm just like, it's the bracelet. I don't know what's going on, but she's doing something to everybody. Then we also have this sketchy situation with like burning the Blackthorn Manor down, because like Grace asks James to go destroy a certain object in the manor, but like that leads to the mansion burning down. And I'm just, did Grace want the mansion to burn down? Were they trying to do something to like pin it on James and the other kids? I don't know. I mean, luckily it doesn't get pinned on them. Like, it ends up getting blamed on Tatiana for having the dark and forbidden objects to begin with. But like, Grace, she's sketchy. She's sketchy. She's just sketchy. Alright, so let's talk about Jessie. And I guess also Lucy, because Lucy's with Jessie a lot. So we find out pretty early on that the boy from the forest is Jesse Blackthorn. We also find out that he's a ghost. Which, just saying, is pretty interesting considering it's Jesse Blackthorn's line that leads down to Julian Blackthorn and his million siblings. So like, does he eventually become not a ghost? I have a lot of questions about that situation. So towards the beginning, Lucy goes to investigate the Blackthorn house, which is when we find out what happened to Jesse, how he was a sick child and he couldn't handle the mark when it was given to him. But like Tatiana was weirdly prepared and was able to like bring him back into this like ghost form, like with the plan to like eventually bring him all the way back. And I'm just like, what is it? What is it with Blackthorns and raising people from the dead? You know, you've got Malcolm and Annabelle, and then you've got like Ty and Livy, and now we've got Tatiana and Jesse. Like, this is a Blackthorn thing? Speaking of a Malcolm fate, he like shows up in this book, and I'm just saying, when I saw his name, all I felt was rage. Apparently I'm still not over Lord of Shadows. Anyway, while we're like at the Blackthorn place, it's not the manor, because that's an Idris. It's wherever they're staying for now. Something, I don't know. But James like teleports there via Shadow Realm. And it's like in the greenhouse where like the demon happens. And then like a ton of baby demons start like hatching and like multiplying. And I'm like, okay. Jesse's also the one who tells Lucy about her like ability to control, not control, but like command ghosts. Because, was it Cordelia? Cordelia fell into the river and like apparently Lucy did something and a bunch of ghosts like saved Cordelia. I don't know, but like it just kind of makes sense, because I mean, it makes sense that her power, she would have a power, because she is Tessa's daughter, the same way that James can do the Shadow Realm thing. My camera battery died. Okay, it's fine, we're back. Let's talk about James and Cordelia. So, Cordelia has been like a hardcore crushing on James for like ever. But like, I mean, especially in this book. And I love that like Lucy is like fully aware and also fully supportive. She's just like, yes, we can be sisters. At some point, they go to talk to, I don't know how you say her name, like Hypatia? I don't know. But they have to like get something from her or something, and James and Cordelia end up in this empty room, like the whispering room or something. It's like this room. And I don't know why they go in there. I don't know if like, oh wait, did like Charles walk into like the club they were in maybe? And they were like, oh, we gotta hide. Maybe that's what it was. We'll talk about Charles in a minute, because I have some angry thoughts. So like they're just like hanging out in this room and they hear footsteps and they're just like, oh, we can't get caught in here. I guess they didn't want somebody to like catch them in this room like doing something, or think that they're doing something shady. So they just like start making out, because they're like, this is totally normal. And if somebody walks in, they're just gonna be like, oh, it's just like two crazy people like hiding out in this room. And I'm just over here like, yikes. Because I'm just like, Cordelia actually does have feelings. And James is just oblivious. It's just, and it gets pretty intense. Which, I mean, it made me think that like, oh, like maybe he has feelings too. You know, even if they've been like masked by whatever Grace has done to him. And then of course, Matthew walks in on them and it just gets real awkward. Which is why I also think that maybe Matthew has like a little bit of a crush on Cordelia. But he also kind of has like a crush on Lucy maybe too. So like, I don't know. Let's talk about Charles. We're gonna talk about Charles. I hate him. But if we're gonna talk about Charles, we also gotta talk about Alistair. People are way too connected in this book. I have a diagram actually. I will show that at the end of this video. So, Cordelia is like low-key spying on Alistair, her brother, because she's like afraid that he's gonna spill the beans to Charles about how their little group is working with Ragnar Fell, because like Alistair can't be trusted by like the Merry Thieves because of everything that happened at the Shadowhunter Academy, whatever. Cordelia is like spying on them, but that was not what happened. And she like catches them together, which had me shook. And it's just complicated. It's so complicated because like you have Alistair and Charles, but then you have Charles who's like fake engaged to that one girl, like Ariadne, is that how you say her name? There's so many names in here that I'm not sure how to pronounce. But because of that, Alistair is upset, obviously. And then you've got, don't Grace and Charles get like fake engaged later? I mean like it's really engaged, but he's just power hungry. I don't know. Charles is terrible. Like, and he's like Charlotte and Henry's child. So I'm just like, how did Charlotte and Henry, who are like the sweetest and kindest people, produce this monster of a child? Like, he's power hungry and he wants to like rule or something and he needs to chill. I don't know. Alistair deserves better anyway. I don't remember why Charles and Grace get together. It was some kind of like power move, I think. Or like, I don't know. They're both manipulative and power hungry, honestly, so like, they deserve each other. Let's talk about Thomas and Alistair. This I'm down for. Here's the thing with Alistair. He was confusing throughout this book. Like, one second, he's like being nice and friendly to Thomas. And then the next, he's like being all snappy to everybody. And I'm just like, what is your issue? And like, I don't know if it's because there's still like all of this like residual unresolved tension with the group from the Shadowhunter Academy and whatever happened there that I don't really remember, so I probably need to go read Tales from Shadowhunter Academy again. I don't know. We also with like Alistair and Thomas, we have that whole like flashback chapter where they're like in Paris just like hanging out. Like, what? Next on the list, Matthew. So, like I said, I've already kind of talked about Matthew a little bit, that like, I feel like he's got a crush on Cordelia, though he might also have like a little crush on Lucy, and I don't know what's going on there. The biggest thing with Matthew for me was in one of the flashback chapters that was like only a couple years previously, we get a little bit into his background and he's like upset and grieving and we don't know why at first. And the last sentence says, after all, he had committed murder. And I'm just over here like, hold up, what? Who did he murder? What is happening? Which I did realize after finishing the book that it could, I vaguely remember something happening with Charlotte being pregnant and like her drinking something and it killed the baby, and I think Matthew was involved somehow, maybe? I don't remember, but it was in one of the novella books and I need to find out what's going on with that. We also, part of the four main group of the boys, we have Christopher. I really like him, even though we don't get much of him in this book. I mean, he's mostly just involved with his little lab stuff. Let's talk about the Shadow Realm. So at some point, this like archway thing opens up and like leads to the Shadow Realm that James sometimes like falls into and back out of. And like, of course, he goes through it, and this is where he meets Belial, I think is the name, who is his grandfather, Tessa's demon father. And we find out that Belial is the reason for the lack of demons. But then he's also the reason for like the resurgence of demons, like while the Shadowhunters have been like weakened by thinking that like they were basically led into a false sense of security. But then again, like these demons being released are like told to like go cause havoc or whatever. It's all a distraction, because what Belial wants is to possess someone so that he can be in the human world, because he can't physically be there himself. But that someone that he possesses has to be someone of his blood. So he wants to possess James. And like he's also basically like blackmailing him into it, because like if James does agree, then Belial is like, I'll cure everyone of like this demon sickness that's like killing people. And I'm just like, no. Also, I'm just saying, but this like whole situation gives me Supernatural vibes, circa season 5. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. The time has come to talk about the engagement. So going back to the Blackthorn Manor burning down, the Enclave has a meeting about the situation. And Grace like gets up to rat him out, which is why I think that this was like all a setup to like purposefully to pin it on James. I don't know why, but like it just seems sketch. And she's just like, the truth is that James, and then Cordelia stands up and like cuts her off, and she's just like, James cannot have been in Idris. He was with me in my bedroom all night. And everyone just starts like freaking out, and they're just like gasping and like horrified and scandalized. And then James is just like, I need to talk to you right now. Which, you know, leads them to getting engaged. And I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed. Because like, James thinks that like he's saving her because like, you know, us like spending the night together isn't that bad if we were already planning to get married, blah blah blah. I'm just like, James, you don't understand. You don't understand. Then the parents burst in, and Will like 180s on his emotions towards this situation. It's hilarious. But at first he's just like really angry and disappointed at James for like ruining Cordelia or whatever, you know. And then James explains that they're getting married, and Will just becomes so excited. He says, and I quote, that we have no choice but to give our blessing to Cordelia Carstairs. The Carstairs and the Herondales will be bonded even more closely now. If James could have chosen his wife from all the women in all the worlds that are or ever were, I could wish for no other. And then does this like, Will, you cannot compliment our new daughter only on the chance of her last name. And Will just like doesn't even hear that. He's just like, wait till I tell Jem. He's so excited. Though of course, you know, it's not real, supposedly. But, you know, the plan that James kind of came up with is that they'll be married for a year and then get divorced and Cordelia can be free. And I'm just like, that's not what she wants, though. She wants you to love her back and for this to be real. I even made a note, like, on one of my sticky notes where I was just like, yikes, we're going to end up having a year of angst where they both have feelings but think the other's just pretending. I'm calling it now. So yeah, that's all I have for this book. There's a lot of stuff I left out because this book is a million pages long, but I loved it. I loved the characters. I can't wait for the next one, especially because the cover and like description were recently released. Let me know down below your thoughts on this book, any theories you might have for the next one, and yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.